Hi, I'm Nick Powles, publisher of 1851 magazine. Here at IFA 2017, we had the privilege of sitting down with Russell Frith, longtime executive and innovator with Lawn Doctor. Similar to some of the greatest CEOs of our time, especially in franchising, like the Ray Krocs of the world, Russell was able to go into Lawn Doctor and build it from a startup idea into a brand. Here, as his career has come to a close, he was able to celebrate and share his stories of what it took to become great within the Lawn Doctor community. Here at 1851 and at IFA 2017, we're bringing you the brightest, the most innovative, the most entrepreneurial people in franchising. Russ Frith is one of those. Take a look at our interview. We're here live at IFA 2017 here in Las Vegas. We're here with Russ Frith. Russ, I want to start off with the emotional side of franchising and business, because you receiving the Hall of Fame award yesterday, I think it's moving to see someone be able to reflect on their career and have great appreciation for how much has been done. When you're reflecting in a moment like that, is this surreal? Is this what you expected when you got into franchising? Was this a dream come true? Is that a moment that exists earlier in your career?
No, never even thought about it. I first worked for another franchise company in the marketing department. I answered an ad for assistant to the executive vice president, and I read all the qualifications that they had in the ad. I said, nobody has all those qualifications. I got quite a few, so I'll go down there. And I ended up getting hired and really got my first exposure to franchising there. I was there 7 years, and it was Cotman Transmissions. And I learned a tremendous amount about the business. And frankly, I became friendly with the local Lawn Doctor dealer. When he found out that I was involved in a franchise company, he would stop by from time to time and ask me questions like, why would a franchisor want to do that? Why should I do this? And, and so on and so forth. And one day he stopped by and he said, you ought to call this guy Tony Giordano. We could really use somebody like you in the company. A little time went by and I said, well, okay. I gave him a call. I went up and visited him in Matawan, New Jersey. I lived in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So it was about a little more than 2 hour ride. We got up there. This is probably a lengthy story, is that right? Yeah, okay. But it's true. I called him and he said, we talked for a while. And he said, okay, call my secretary, Mary Lou, on Friday and tell her that I told you to call to make an appointment. I said, sure. So she said, okay. I called her and she said, yeah, he's got you down for 9:30 on Monday. Is that okay? I said, no, 9:30 on Tuesday. I said, sure. And so I rode up there and I got there early, waited in the parking lot and walked in right around 9:30. Well, we sat and talked from 9:30 till 4:30 in the afternoon without ever leaving his office. Okay? No lunch, no anything. Okay? And at the end of the time, he said, I have another meeting at 4:30, and he says, but I'd really like to talk to you some more. I said, okay. He said, when can you come back? I said, how about tomorrow? He said, okay. And he says, by the way, here's my franchise agreement. Take a look at it. See what you think. Well, I did. It was horrible. It was misspelled words in it. And, I mean, it's just conceptually, there were things that should be in there that weren't. There were things that were in there that, in my opinion, shouldn't. And so by the time I got home, it was like 7:30. I, had a chance to talk to my kids for a couple minutes and had a dinner with my wife. And, we were talking. I said, I'm reading over this thing just right here. And should I tell them the truth? And she said, well, yeah, the truth is always the best. I said, okay. So I go up Wednesday morning, 9:30, same thing. Same routine. We talked till 4:30 in the afternoon. No lunch, no anything, just a couple cups of coffee. So at the end of that time, he said to me, he was, wanted to leave. He said, "Boy, you're really upset my apple cart." No, I figured I drove 8 hours back and forth. I spent 13 hours with him. So I said, "You know what?" I said, "I think I deserve to understand what that means." And he looked at me for a minute and he said, "Yeah," with a big smile. He said, "Last week we completed an executive search and decided to hire this fella. And when you called, I was just about ready to call him." And he thought, we had a good conversation. I want to meet you. And he said, he has some qualities and characteristics that you don't have, but you got some that he doesn't have, and I need to think about this. And, can I call some of your references? I said, "Sure." And one of them was my past boss. And he said, "I'll tell you what," he says, "I'll finish up with my research and stuff on Friday. I'll call you on Monday." Okay. Well, I lived in suburban Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a mecca of franchise companies. So I was going through the ads on Sunday, and I called a company that was a startup bakery franchise. And so I made an appointment. The guy said sure he would see me. And so I didn't get back till about 5:30 because it was way the other side of the city, which was a pretty good trip. And my wife greeted me at the door. She said, "Some guy, Tony Giordano, got called." He said, "and asked for you." And I told him, "Well, you were out on an interview." And he got all upset. He said, "Tell him to call me right away." So I called him. He says, "What are you doing on another interview?" I said, "Well, looking for a job." And he said, "Well, I want to hire you." I said, "Okay." He said, "When can you start?" I said, "Well, my car needs to be serviced. I have an appointment tomorrow, etc. How about Wednesday?" He said, "Fine." He said, "Look, come on up about 9:30. We'll go down to the diner and have some eggs, and we'll make a deal. And be prepared to stay that day." So, in effect, I was offered and accepted a job in another state, not knowing any of the details of what I was going to do, not knowing my compensation or anything. And that Wednesday, we sat down in the diner. I can never forget it. We both had hash and eggs and sat there and talked for about an hour. And he said, "How much do you want to make?" And I told him, salary and commission and, so on and so forth. He said, "Okay, fine." And that's how it started. So I was promoted several times within the company, and unfortunately, my predecessor dropped dead of a heart attack, and I became the president of a privately held company owning 1/10% of the stock. And, over time, I got the golden parachute, golden handcuffs. We grew the business, became pretty profitable. And ultimately, my partner and I, the two largest shareholders, he's older than I am, we thought it would be a good time to transition in an orderly fashion. Because when my predecessor died, there was turmoil with the wife and the family and everything like that. And so I said, we owe our franchisees and employees an orderly transition. So we put out a book and got a ton of offers, and ultimately made a deal with Levine Lichtman Capital Partners. And it's worked very, very well for everybody.
So, amazing story. A few follow-up questions. One,
sure.
You look back on all of that. Does the emotion then hit yesterday that you're being recognized for all your work? Is that an emotional moment for you?
Yeah. Well, it was twofold. Certainly, there are a lot of people in franchising that are doing very, very well. I think the principal reason why I got the reward was my involvement in IFA. I was the treasurer for 12 years. I was the chairman. I was on the board for I don't know how many, probably 16, 17 years. by virtue of I had an elected term, but then as treasurer, you're on the board even though you're not being elected, okay? And that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I felt like I was able to give back something to franchising. I was able to participate in defending franchising against adverse regulations. And when I say franchising, I mean some of the things we fought against were anti-franchisor, and some of them severely impacted franchisees. Example of this argument that's going on now that they want joint and several liability for franchisee and franchisor. If that becomes a reality, it'll be the end of franchising. So it's pretty exciting to have participated in that, and certainly very exciting to have sat at the same table and talked with and argued and debated with some of the incredible luminaries of franchising. Bill Rosenberg, I think of, actually I got the Bill Rosenberg Award for service. Gary Charwood, Tony Martino. Tony Martino particularly, because he was a great mentor early on. I can remember in Maui, it was an IFA convention, and I went up to him and introduced myself and told him I had worked for Cotman, who was owned by AMCO's former partner, Rich Silva. And so we got to talking, and ended up he and his wife and myself and my wife having dinner together, sitting on the beach, and I just kept asking him questions. He was very candid, about our conversations and things, and really helped. And there's a bunch of others, Sid Feltenstein. I mean, I could go down a list of some brilliant guys. And, to rub elbows with them and be able to talk to them on a first name basis is incredible.
So, now that you're a Hall of Fame member, all the accolades that you've received, there's going to be plenty of people that were sitting in a room like that yesterday saying, how do I get to that point? And one area that obviously different than the franchisor, suppliers have skyrocketed. There's 600 suppliers in a room like this that all have some sort of passion connected to franchising. What advice would you have if you had to narrow it down and say this is how I become a Hall of Famer in an industry? If you truly love it, what advice do you have?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to participate, and I encourage people to participate at all levels. I mean, I was on committees, which did a lot of work and don't usually get recognition. That all funnels up to the board and what have you. But the genesis of a lot of ideas is in the committee level. And I was on the finance committee for many, many years. You get to know people then. And then you start to network with them. And then you start getting asked to participate. Would you do a round table? Would you be on the strategic planning committee, et cetera, et cetera? And I think over time, those services benefit you, but sometimes they're recognized for benefiting the IFA. And we've made some big decisions, over the course of my tenure, and built a much better organization.
One thing that you said yesterday, and it's going to be consistent, but you thanked your family as a father, as a business owner, and a father of two children. I admire the fact that your son is so connected into franchising, which would probably not be a typical path for many families. When you were able to reflect and look down and say, my son is now the CEO of something I built. How proud of you are of something like that?
Oh, incredibly. And how it all started was when Scott was 15, he was looking for a job. Well, we have a manufacturing company. And I said, okay, let me see what I could do. I mean, he had a paper route, that sort of thing. And so I talked to my partner who ran the manufacturing, And I said, my son worked for a summer job. He said, sure. And I think it was minimum wage or maybe a little bit more of that. And he went over there and they just beat him to death. They gave him every dirty job, cleaning out the bathrooms, and I mean, just, you name it. If it was dirty, he got it. To the point where I would drop him off in the morning and then take him home at night. I actually put sheets on the seats of my car. But he really liked it. He got engaged over there. And then, interestingly enough, he graduated from Seton Hall with a major in English. And my marketing manager at that point in time says, we're just overloaded. I need somebody, a creative writer, to help me out for a little while. So Scott had an accident and had some surgery, and he was really, chomping at the bit. You sit in a bed for a couple of weeks, when you're a young guy. So I said, okay. I said, how about if I ask my son, and we'll bring him in. You can talk to him, have him write something for you. Do what you want. So Scott came in, and he was there for like 2 weeks. And the marketing manager came into me and said, I just hired your son. So the fact of the matter is, I really didn't hire him. Jerry Antel, who's the marketing manager, did.
So has he paid you back for dirtying up your car seats?
Oh, sure. A kid, any father that today, with all the potential distractions, and I don't care what socioeconomic group you're in, people tend to think about inner city issues. Drugs are rampant in wealthy suburban areas. And to have kids that have grown up and not been involved in that, to be good citizens, respectful of community and the great nation we are, is a great payback. That really is.
Fantastic. So when you sold Lawn Doctor to the private equity firm, was that hard to let go? Was it an emotional sale as much as it was a business decision?
I think I was over the emotional part when we made the decision to engage a banker. All right. The process is grueling. In the beginning, the banker, they ask for a lot of information, but it's readily available. When you get down to the final things after there's a letter of intent, it's grueling. 15, 18, 19 hours a day. We were at the lawyer's office back and forth, principally on the warranties and representations. And, of course, they want you to guarantee everything, which, you certainly understand. And we don't want to guarantee anything. So, there's a lot of back and forth. And we agreed that we would close on, I think it was the 10th. We would sign the documents on the 10th. And then there's like a waiting period after that. And we were down to one or two sticking points. And we actually agreed, their lawyers in New York, we were at our lawyers in New Jersey, and the LLCP people were in California, all of us on this giant conference call. And so we finally agreed. I signed the papers, they signed the papers out of their end, and we put them in the mail at actually 11:56, and the deadline was 12 o'clock. That was probably the most intense, grueling experience I had in my life, of continuous. The last 3 or 4 days were like no sleep, back and forth.
Well, I think it's important, especially for younger franchisors that are thinking, this is what the end looks like. This is how I exit my business. I think it's important for them to listen to the advice of those that have gone through it, especially those who have been so emotionally connected to a brand over the course of their lifetime. When you step away, when you walk down these halls, when you meet people here, what do you want people to say about you?
that I was honest, that I, very early on, I had a franchisee tell me, and in so many words, he just looked at me one way, because it was a challenging issue. He looked at me and he said, "Russ, do the right thing. Do the right thing." And that was the end of the conversation. And that stuck with me. His name was Mark Mason. He's still a franchisee at Lawn Doctor. And it really struck to me that, people know most often the difference between right and wrong. And you can do justification by rationalization and all that. But I believe people fundamentally know right from wrong.
Well, I think it's obviously a testament by doing the right things. Good things happen to good people, and clearly you get an award. And I know it's another award, but I think in the industry, especially for the next generation of those who are going to be leaders, it's inspirational to see the culmination of a career be highlighted by appreciation. And
thank you very much. I was, the word humbled was used a lot in the last couple of days. But it's definitely a descriptive word in terms of feeling. I got the phone call from Jack Earl. Just getting out of the shower, the phone rang. I grabbed it and I said, "Holy cow, you're kidding me!" And understanding, because as being a past chair, you go through another set of chairs in the Chairman's Advisory Council, Chairman's Committee, and it's your job, among other things. We pick the different award winners, and I had to make those calls to other people. And so when I got the call, I said, "Oh wow."
So it's equivalent in franchising to Obama giving Joe Biden the medal when he was surprised. It was a turn of events. It was your turn to be on the receiving side.
Okay, I guess that.
Or that.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you storytelling with me.
Okay.
I find your story fascinating and inspirational, and I think for those that want to make a difference in franchising, you're a good role model to look up to.
Okay.
And see.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ross.